You're listening to the Bloodshed Baddies.
Hi, I'm Lex.
And I'm Sam.
And I'm Cousin Vin.
And we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
Baddies! Cousin Vinny's here.
I'm honored, guys. I'm honored. How y'all doing?
Good, good, good. You guys have probably heard us talk about Cousin Vinny at every single episode now because he is the mastermind between our awesome intro music. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Vinny?
Yeah, that's me. I make the intro music for the baddies. Yeah, I'm Cousin Vin. Vinnie Pelleoni's my real name. I use the Cousin Vin, it's just that catchy thing that we do or whatever. But I've been making music for a little while and I'm starting to work on a new album and stuff, so I'm excited to release that to the world. Yeah, I'm your cousins. I mean,
He's our actual cousin.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm Sam and Lex's actual cousins, so yeah.
Did you see I'm wearing your merch?
Oh my Lord, Sam. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Are we getting new merch on this new music album?
We are, yeah. This year's been kind of crazy. It's just like a lot of moving around and stuff, and I stepped away from the music for a little while. So, I've been working on a lot of stuff and I'm gonna release a project with merch and do the whole thing. But I moved to North Carolina actually a few months ago. So it's been quite the experience down here. I've been down here for 2.5 months. And then I'm moving to Alaska in a few weeks for a seasonal job. So I've been kind of all over the place 2025 so far. So the music has been put on pause, but I have a lot of songs that I've been working on and I'm gonna do it all. So when the time's right.
Yes. Question about the new album. Do we have songs like Stranger Thing from your last album? Like, or is it back to primarily like rap?
Uh Primarily rap, I'd say. That last one was strictly for Sarah, who passed away last year. So yeah, I just kind of made that like over the span of a few weeks before me and my brother headed out for a long journey on a bike trip. So I released that and then didn't even go back to the music for a while. So that was for her. But this is like something that's been kind of in the works for like probably 2 to 3 years now, probably since the first kind of project I've released or whatever. So I'm very excited for you guys to hear it, and I appreciate you guys being my number one and two fans, I'd say, right? Yeah.
I'm number one, Lex.
I can't argue today just because you did have the foresight to wear your indigo hoodie, even though mine is right there.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Okay, so I do have a question for you, Vinny. Who is your biggest rap inspiration?
To be honest, I don't even listen to rap anymore. Uh, I don't like these days. I don't even really listen to a lot of rap. But growing up, it was like, and throughout high school and college, it was definitely like J. Cole, Mac Miller, Kendrick Lamar, guys like that. A lot of the new school guys. And yeah, so before we start this whole Tupac Biggie thing, I'm not a East or West Coast guy. I'm just a Midwest, Michigan, Detroit, well, suburbs, North Detroit, like not even Detroit. So we don't have to involve Cousin Vinny in any of this. But
Yes. So we are going to take it and we are going to kick it back old school rap today. And I think going into this, I was like, oh, I kind of want to learn more about Biggie Smalls because I've learned a lot about, or I know a lot about Tupac's story. But it seems that you can't talk about one without the other because these are more intertwined than I ever thought. So, one of my biggest resources I used was there is a documentary called Murder Rap Inside the Biggie and Tupac Murders. It was released in 2015. So, a lot of that comes from that. And the rest will be linked. But we are going back to the golden age of the 1990s.
90s.
Yes. So, on the West Coast, Suge Knight was the king of the West at Death Row Records, while Puffy Combs ruled the East at Bad Boy Records. So, as Vinny alluded to, and as if you don't know, there was a huge rivalry between these two record labels at this time. In November of 1994, before Tupac was signed to a record label, he was actually beaten and shot during a robbery at a recording studio in New York.
Before he was signed?
Yes. Puffy and Biggie happened to be in the same building where this happened. So Tupac believed that his friends had set him up. In reality, they had nothing to do with it. So the very next day, after being shot and beat up, Tupac had to go to court for a sexual assault case, and he got sentenced to prison time. So this is where the rivalry kind of really heats up. A couple months later, in February of 1995, Biggie releases a song called Who Shot You? Taunting Tupac's shooting.
I mean, bro.
This is bad.
Yeah. It's not a great start. We're going to fast forward a little bit. And in August of 1995, Suge Knight is at an award show and he publicly disses Puffy on the stage.
Woo.
So 1 month later, Suge and Puffy are at the same nightclub in Atlanta and they both have an entourage with them. This is the time where like entourages were a huge thing. I say the word entourage probably like 8 million times in this story. So if you're playing a drinking game, don't start with shots because you will die. So a fight breaks out between their entourages, and Suge's bodyguard, Jake Robles, gets shot and dies. During all this mess, Suge approaches Tupac in prison while he's waiting for his appeal. And Suge says, I will put up your $3 million bail. $3 million bail if you sign a 3-record contract with Death Row Records.
Would you do it, Cousin Vinny?
I'm taking it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's crazy. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Obviously, Tupac takes it because he's sitting in jail right now, and this is his ticket out. In December of 1995, Mark Anthony Bell is a record promoter who is associated with Bad Boy Records. He makes a claim that he was taken upstairs by Suge Knight and the people from Death Row and was beaten up as they tried to get information from him about where Puffy and his family lived.
Scary.
And then Tupac decides to ramp up the rivalry even more. In June of 1996, he releases the song Hit 'Em Up. Hit 'Em Up is a diss track about sleeping with Biggie's wife.
You cross the line, dude. You can't, cross the line there.
Is there any like realness to this?
No. In the song, he also threatens to kill members of Bad Boy Records. And he's got a pretty famous line where he does straight up say, fuck Biggie in it.
Yeah.
Ballsy.
It's not subtle. It's not subtle.
Can't you get like defamation or something?
Probably. But I think like back in this time, like this is what rap was all about, right? Like I think especially now, like with the like Kendrick diss tracks and stuff that have
A
come
minor.
Well, it was a lot more straight. Like, I think it was just more blunt back then, like
yes.
they were just like saying things straight up and they kind of, I don't know. It's just a little less, I mean, with the Drake and Kendrick thing, it's very personal, but I don't know. There's something about the old school rap beef. Like they would just call each other out, and like I said, they're just more straight up. I'm kind of rambling on. Sorry, guys, you can cut that out, but yeah.
No. And I think like that's a lot of the younger generation looks at like the Kendrick and Drake stuff and thinks this is like so new, but like this is how rap was. And even the younger generation, especially, forgets that like this is how Eminem was.
Yeah, truth.
Eminem started with mostly diss tracks, and they weren't just about other rappers. It was literally anybody that was in the public eye could be in an Eminem diss track.
Also about like killing his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, his own mom. He went after his own mom. That says a lot about him.
Yeah,
brutal.
So I do think it was just like the culture of rap at the time, but I don't think anybody could foresee what it would lead to. So the next month, the Southside Crip members encounter Mob Peru Bloods at a mall south of LA. The Bloods are associated with Suge Knight. There's one of the members, Trayvon Lane, and he's wearing this like big chain, gaudy necklace that Suge Knight only gives out to his closest friends. So it's like very hard to get these necklaces.
It's a friendship necklace, but rap version.
It says BFFs for life. Kissy face, kissy face, kissy face.
Yes, I had one of those, Suge Knight.
Or like those little hearts you get when you're little and they're like broken and one
It's
says
half
best
a heart.
and one says friends and you put them together. So Trayvon Lane is wearing his best friend's necklace with Suge Knight and Orlando Anderson steals it.
Mm.
So Puffy actually offered $5,000 to any Crip who could bring him a death row necklace.
For like a scavenger hunt?
Yeah, yes. Puffy said, "We're going to play a scavenger hunt game."
That's what it sounds like.
And you have to remember that, first off, this is the 1990s where $5,000 was worth a lot more money than it is today. But also, these are gang members who have nothing and come from nothing. So, of course, they're going to try to make some money quickly by stealing this necklace.
100%.
But this just keeps adding fuel to the fire, right? We're just increasing this rivalry.
Heating up. It's heating up. Yep.
So a couple months later, on September 7th, 1996, Tupac and Suge are both at a Mike Tyson fight, which, like, to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are like all the greats under one roof, right?
The 90s.
Yes.
How old were you
So,
guys?
96, I would have been 5.
2.
5, 2. So you guys weren't bumping no gang rap that age, huh? No, not
No,
yet.
but my dad was probably bumping Biggie. My dad was a big Biggie guy. So we
maybe
were probably
Little
like,
Sam and Lex were
yeah,
dancing in
little
the
Sam and
corner.
Lex were probably dancing to Biggie.
You weren't even born yet, were you, Vinnie?
No, I'm 98, so I just missed it.
Not
You weren't
thought
even
of.
a twinkle in your mother's eye.
I know. Thanks, Mom. Missing one of the most entertaining eras of rap. Thanks.
Come on, Auntie.
Yeah.
So an altercation happens with some Crip members and they start yelling at Suge, "You think you're untouchable." So Suge responds with, "That's because I am." The Crips threaten back, "You can be touched."
Threat.
Yeah. It's very ominous.
Ominous.
As Suge and Tupac start to leave, they encounter Orlando Anderson, who was the guy who stole the necklace.
Mm.
This is all on video in a casino. So, like, you can watch this video. It's in the documentary. Trayvon Lane whispers into Tupac's ear. I'm guessing he's like, "There's Orlando. He stole my necklace." And Tupac attacks Orlando. So all of a sudden, the whole entourage joins in and security comes. So they like book it. But everybody now, like, they've brought attention to themselves. Everybody now is like, "Oh my God, that's Tupac." And like crowds of people gather and start following him out of the casino.
Messy, messy.
So Tupac returns to his hotel and he meets up with his girlfriend, Kidada Jones. He's like, "Hey, girl, it is way too dangerous to go out tonight. I'm going to need you to stay at the hotel." And then him and Suge end up going to the 662 Club. Tupac was going to perform a song at the 662 Club. Suge and Tupac ride in a car together, and security rides in a separate car behind them. And then their entourage is there. So all in all, they have 6 vehicles in this entourage. On the way there, Suge is pulled over for his music being too loud. This kind of draws attention to the fact that Suge and Tupac are there, because as they're pulled over on a Las Vegas, like the middle of the Las Vegas Strip, everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's Suge Knight and Tupac in that car."
Like all the attention's on him.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have a dumb question. I didn't know you could get pulled over for your music being too loud. That's a thing?
That was a myth.
Well, it happened.
That was a myth. I was scared of doing. I thought that was a lie or whatever.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
have
that
those
our
like
parents told us.
bases though that like like shake your whole body.
Let me Google it real fast. Can
Yeah.
you?
I guess it's maybe because the ambulance thing, huh? You can't hear an
Mm,
ambulance coming down the road or whatever. Is that what it is?
that could
In
be.
general, you cannot be pulled over solely for playing music too loud. However, if a police officer has reason to believe your music is causing a distraction or a disturbance, they can issue a ticket for excessive noise.
There we go.
And I mean, this was back in the 90s. There's two black rappers in a car bumping music. I'm sure Las Vegas police weren't happy about that.
Yeah.
Keep it down, kids. Keep it low.
Direct quote from the cops.
As they're kind of leaving that area after the police leave, a white Cadillac pulls up along Suge's vehicle. Someone leans across the car and shoots into the car 9 times, hitting Tupac 4 times. Frank Alexander, his bodyguard, jumps out, but Suge makes a U-turn and starts to drive away, but he ends up hitting a median and blowing out his tires. Tupac is eventually transported to the hospital, and 6 days later, he died from his injuries.
Awful.
Many people assumed that the shooter is Orlando Anderson, but you have to remember you're dealing with people who are rappers and people who are associated with gangs and people who are actually in gangs. So Suge and his crew, they will not cooperate, so the police can't build a case.
I guess like culturally I get it because I know that is the culture of a gang, but like if that was my friend, I feel like I would, I don't know. That's hard.
I think there was I don't know, Patrick Bet David is, but if either one of you know who that is, but he's a big podcaster and he just had Suge Knight on, I think like recently. And like Suge Knight was kind of talking about how he wouldn't speak because he wanted to get like he think they deserve street justice instead of just like the cops
Mm,
kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the
Mhm.
mentality of a lot of those guys. So it's interesting to think about. But
no, that makes a lot of sense.
So Suge Knight actually ends up violating his parole for being in a fight, and he ends up in prison for the next 5 years, which sends the Bloods and the Crips into a gang war. We are like now in straight up gang war. And with Suge in prison, Biggie starts to come back to California to produce his album and start shooting videos. He's like, this is my chance to take over the West Coast, basically. On March 7th, 1997, Puffy and Biggie present an award in LA, and there is a mix of cheering and booing from the crowd
Mm.
because remember, LA, not their turf. They shouldn't be there. The next day, Biggie is on the phone with his mom, and his mom is really worried about his security. She's like, you don't have enough security out there. You shouldn't be on the West Coast. I don't understand. And Biggie's like, don't worry, mom. I got this. Everything is okay. So that night, Biggie, along with Puffy, heads to a party at a place called the Peterson. There was a lot of celebrities invited to this party. It was going to be a pretty big party. But unfortunately, double the amount of people that they thought showed up. And there was only 10 security guards there. So again, there's some footage of this. And there's a lot of people who are stuck outside because the Peterson is now full or they weren't invited, but they're there to see the party. So outside the place starts to get really crazy. The police end up getting called and the fire marshal comes to shut it down. But it takes a while for the fire marshal and the police to get there and to actually shut it down. But around midnight, they start to shut it down. And Puffy and Biggie were like, we're ready to go anyway. But it's so crazy and it's so busy that it takes them 40 minutes to get to their cars.
Oh my gosh.
They get down to like the valet area and they're waiting for their cars. And some of the people in Biggie's entourage notices what they call suspicious people. Biggie ends up getting into the front seat of a car and G Money Young is driving. They have 3 cars in the entourage with Biggie in the middle. While they're driving, a driver pulls up alongside and starts shooting into Biggie's car. He was shot 4 times. The SUV that was following Biggie's car, so remember Biggie's the middle one in the entourage, they call 911. You can listen to the emergency calls on the documentary. They're crazy. They're like, don't really know what's going on. They're screaming. The car is following because G Money starts taking Biggie to a hospital. So the car is following, and the dispatcher is like, stay where you're at. We'll send an ambulance to you. And they're like, no, the car's moving. Like, you got to come to us. And it's just kind of very messy. And at 1:15 a.m., he is declared dead. The doctor said that he was most likely dead shortly after he was shot.
So quick.
Wow.
So this is in March of 1997. And remember, Tupac dies in September of 1996. So very quickly, we've lost two of the world's biggest rappers.
And they were both shot 4 times, right?
I just realized that as I said it out loud, and that is very weird.
That's wild to me.
Yeah, wow.
Biggie's death starts to be investigated, but the LAPD is hit with a lot of scandals at the time. So there's this investigator named Russell Poole who develops a theory that there were dirty LA cops working for Suge Knight, and they were the ones who murdered Biggie.
Cops?
Yes. So they were saying that there's an officer, David Mack, who had a friend named Amir Muhammad, and they were the ones who did this murder. And he comes kind of the LAPD and is like, this is what's happened. And the LAPD is like, no, sir, it's not. And so he's like, it's a cover up. LAPD is covering it up. And then he's quickly transferred off the case, and he leaves the force and writes a book and is in documentaries, and he gets the whole public on board with this theory that it was dirty LA cops.
Wow.
Biggie's mom files a wrongful death lawsuit, which was worth up to $400 million because that's how much Biggie was worth. Remember, this is $400 million in the mid 1990s.
Yeah, wow.
So now LAPD has a fire lit under their booty to solve the case, because if they can solve the case, it's not a wrongful death conviction. They won't have to pay $400 million out to Biggie's family. So now they have to solve this crime. So in May of 2006, they start a task force, and they involve the FBI and the DEA. So they do go back and look at this theory that investigator had, that David Mack, the police officer, was involved. Now, David Mack has some red flags. He did rob a bank.
A police officer.
Yes.
This was later though, right?
Yes. He also had a shrine to Tupac.
Oh, like maybe he was an obsessed fan.
Yeah. He also had a very similar car to the shooter at that time.
Same car, right?
Yeah. However, they dismiss this theory because there's literally nothing connecting him to Biggie's killing.
I feel like those are really odd coincidences, though, if they are coincidences.
They are. I'll tell you right now, they are.
I have a question. Wasn't he having a thing with Suge Knight's wife, or was that someone else on Biggie's side? Do you know about that? I think there was like a big thing about that. I don't know if it was Mac or someone else on the East Coast having a thing with Suge Knight's wife.
Yes.
Okay.
The police officer.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It might be him.
And that car is hers or whatever. That's how they connected it or whatever, there was some crazy connection, I think. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right.
That is a very messy situation. So how is this
Podcast or the story? Oh.
Both.
But I'm just saying, like, how does he get let out if all of these things, yeah, they're circumstantial, but don't make sense to me.
We're going to get into a couple more theories. So there's another conspiracy theory that people have. Outside, when it was getting crazy, outside the party, 30 minutes before Biggie was shot, there was a shooting outside in that crowd. So everybody thought that it was a diversion to get people focused on that so that way the real shooters could go find Biggie. This theory was disproven. Orlando Anderson and Trayvon Lane were also theorized as to possibly being the killers. However, nobody's cooperating, so they like really cannot get any information about any of these people.
And like Cousin Vinny said earlier, like I'm sure the way that they grew up, the way that they're in gangs, they want the streets to
Handle it or whatever.
yeah, to handle it. So it's handled in their way, the right way, because they need
You
more
can call me,
justice than
you can just call me Vinny too, Sam. That's fine too, or whatever.
you're my cousin Vinny.
Michael Little Owl Daru, is the name, was a Crip, and he was a friend of Anderson's who was actually in jail for the shooting that killed Orlando and two others. Orlando ends up getting killed later on in an unrelated shooting. And he started saying like that Suge Knight hired the Crips to kill Biggie. And he's got all these theories and everybody's listening to him while he's in prison. So they start monitoring his mail. And he's not the smartest guy in the whole world. And in a letter to his cousin, he says that he's giving fake information because he thinks it'll get him moved to a lesser security prison. So they
Big mistake.
automatically throw him out. Yeah. So then the cops move on to a guy named Keefe D. Keefe D was part of the Crips, and he was actually the uncle of Orlando Anderson.
There's a lot of moving parts to this case, man.
Yes.
I was listening to some documentary last week. There's so much on both sides. There's so many faces and just crossovers. It's crazy.
So back in 1997, Keefe was interviewed, but again, no one's talking, so there's not much information gleaned from it. So they try to contact him 11 years later, and he automatically lawyers up. Now, the DEA was already kind of onto Keefe and was investigating him because he was trafficking narcotics. So the cops get this great idea to hire this drug courier and use him to set up a drug sting on Keefe. So they basically plant all this stuff and do this huge sting on Keefe's narcotic operations. And they come to Keefe and they say, here's the deal that we can make you. You can come clean about the murder of Biggie, and we'll kind of clear you on all that kind of stuff. Or you can go to prison for life for this drug trafficking. And on top of that, all your family members that are caught up in this drug trafficking ring with you are going to prison as well. So Keefe's like, fine, I'll talk. And they make him a deal that nothing he says can be used against him unless they find out that he deliberately lied. So Keefe starts to talk about how Keefe actually asked Puffy if Puffy wanted extra security for him and Biggie that night. And Puffy was like, hey, the feds are on me. I can't be seen with you. And Keefe's like, okay, but there's Bad Boy Records guys. There's Bloods at this party. Like, it's not safe. And Keefe D says, I promise you, though, Biggie's murder was not us. But what I have to tell you is going to blow your fucking minds.
Oh, boy.
But
He says that he met Puffy in 1993 through his friend Zip. Zip was from New York, and the Crips were supplying security services for the Bad Boy Records crew. Keefe claims that he's at a party that Puffy's at, and Puffy announces that he will give the Crips anything for the heads of Suge and Tupac.
Puffy said this?
Puffy said this. Keefe also says that him and Puffy are at a deli one time, and it's just the two of them. They're one-on-one. And Puffy said that he would pay $1 million for the heads of Suge and Tupac.
what? I have not heard these details.
So there was a rumor back after Tupac was killed that Bad Boy Records had a contract where they paid the Crips $1 million,
What he said he'd pay.
claiming it was for their help with security stuff.
I feel like this is so messy because there are like one, a lot of moving parts, two, famous people with money, security, and three, gangs that have resources to do some terrible things, right? So this is so insane. I didn't realize, I guess, how messy it was.
So Keefe D is in Vegas the day before the Mike Tyson fight. Orlando Anderson, a guy named Terrence, and DeAndre Smith drive up to Vegas to meet with Keefe D, and they drive up in a white Cadillac, which is the same car.
Same
I was
car.
just gonna ask.
After Tupac started beating up Orlando in the casino, Keefe says they immediately planned retaliation. Zip says, hey, this would be a really good time to take care of this thing. Thing being the hit out that Puffy has put out on Suge and Tupac.
Hey,
Zip gives Keefe D a gun.
okay.
So they know that Tupac is going to the 662 Club. So they go to the 662 Club and they're waiting in the parking lot and they're waiting. But Tupac doesn't show up right away. Remember, they got pulled over. So there's this delay. And they kind of are like, fuck it. Let's go to the liquor store, get some liquor. Some of the guys in the car are kind of getting nervous. Keefe jumps in the car. T Brown is driving. And then DeAndre Smith and Orlando are in the back seat. So they get their drinks. They're feeling a little bit better. And they set out to find Tupac. They find him because they had seen the car pulled over. And all of the fans on the side of the road, as they were getting pulled over by the police, are shouting, oh my gosh, it's Tupac and Suge. Oh my God, it's Tupac and Suge. And they're like, oh, wait, there's Tupac and Suge.
Oh, yeah.
So Keefe has the gun, but he can't shoot it because he's in the passenger side and they pull up. The driver's side is closest to them. So he hands it back to DeAndre, who is sitting on the driver's side back seat. And DeAndre is like, no, man, I can't do that. So Orlando reaches over, grabs the gun, puts his body across DeAndre's and shoots into the BMW.
Isn't Orlando Keefe D's
Nephew.
nephew? So he,
Right, yeah.
And the one who stole Trayvon Lane's necklace.
so Keefe D is saying his nephew did it.
Yes. And his nephew is dead at this time.
Okay, that's interesting.
So then there's a rumor that Puffy gave Zip the $500,000 for killing Tupac. Because remember, he didn't kill Suge, he just killed Tupac. But Zip never gave that money to Keefe D.
Why?
If
I mean, like,
you were-
I know why, but like, why did they give it to Zip and not directly to Keefe D if this happened?
Zip was friends with Puffy, remember? That is
Oh,
Keefe's
okay.
connection.
Puffy just
to
got the money back,
Puffy.
presumably, or
So Puffy kind of was like, here's the money, split it with however you want with the people who were involved. And Zip said, zip, zipped. And he got out of there.
his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if this is real, because it could not be. He could be fibbing. Why? I don't know if the police gave him that good deal. But if this is real, that's a very insane story.
Now they have a theory that since the Crips killed Tupac, that Suge Knight hired the Bloods to kill Biggie. So they end up talking to Suge Knight's girlfriend and the mother of one of his children. And they kind of scare her a little bit. And she says she knows who killed Biggie Smalls.
Oh my gosh.
His name was Poochie. His real name is Wardell Foss. And he was a shooter who worked for Suge Knight, but he was killed in 2003 when he was shot 10 times while riding his motorcycle.
My gosh, there's so much
Oh
murder.
wow. Yeah.
So she is terrified to talk, but they promise her protection, and the police make fake documents of Poochie's confession that they like found after Poochie died, and it like implicates her in them and basically says like I killed him, she helped me. And she reads them and she's like, that's actually exactly what happened.
So she helped?
Yes. So she switched cars with him. She got him the gun because remember, during this time, Suge Knight was in prison. So from prison, she would go visit Suge Knight in prison and she would pretend to be part of his legal team because then she could talk to him without being monitored at the jail. And on Suge's direction, she coordinates the murder of Biggie with Poochie.
Wow.
I'm at a loss for words. That's very shocking to me.
The LAPD gets the wrongful death lawsuit dismissed because now they have the killer and they do not pursue the case any further. In 2009, a year after his interviews with the LAPD, Keefe was interviewed by the Las Vegas police, where he confirms the very same story that he told the LAPD. The Las Vegas police wanted to charge him because they actually didn't offer Keefe the same deal, but they were worried that the confession wouldn't be admissible in court because he had had that deal previously with the other police department. So they don't really pursue it. And then in 2019, Keefe releases a book called Compton Street Legend, Notorious Keefe D's Street Level Accounts of Tupac and Biggie Murders, Death Row Origins, Suge Knight, Puffy Combs, and Crooked Cops. And it's all about his involvement in Tupac's murder.
I kind of want this book.
Yeah, when was that released?
2019.
A little late.
Yeah, you are right about that.
In 2023, at 60 years old, Keefe D is arrested for his involvement in Tupac's murder. He claims innocence. He says that the words in the book he wrote were not his. They were his co-writers, and he never even read the book. He only did it for the money. He says he wasn't even in Vegas at the time of the shooting, and he only told police that to keep his family out of jail for the drug charges. And every time he talked to the media about what he did and his involvement in the murders was just for money. His trial was supposed to start in March of this year, but has been delayed to February 9th, 2026.
Unreal.
I didn't know this was still going on this recently.
Neither did I.
Also, how can you say like for years and years and years, publish a book about it and then go back and say, JK, 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 I didn't do anything?
It's wild.
Yeah. For the last 16 years, his story has been the same until he got arrested.
And like, you don't know what to believe because if he's changing his story so much, we don't know what is true and what's not.
Yeah. So it is wild. It is messy. As someone who's like a little too young to remember all the ins and outs of this, but I've heard bits and pieces of this story over the years, it was super interesting to put it all together like this because I guess I didn't realize like how deep it went and how messy it was.
So I have a question. How did Fifi's nephew die again?
He was shot
He was
in
shot.
a different shooting.
Okay, so that was like kind of uninvolved with.
Yeah, just kind of like a gang related shooting. So I think that's
Okay.
also like the crazy part of this case is by the time that Keefe says it was actually Orlando with the gun, Orlando is dead from a different gang related shooting. And by the time Suge's girlfriend says it was Poochie, Poochie is dead from a different gang related shooting.
Interesting.
Yeah, they can't say like, no, it wasn't because they're
Or
dead.
yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my personal opinions is like to me, and I don't know either way, obviously, but to me, it is strange that Keefe lived so many years and was so upfront with the police when he thought he couldn't get caught. I don't understand why he would make up this story. I know he has it could keep me out of prison and my family out of prison, but also they were asking him about Biggie's murder, not Tupac's. He was the one who brought up all this stuff on Tupac. And a lot of it, because remember, they did have that we can't hold this against you unless we find out you're deliberately lying. And a lot of the parts of his story, they did check out, like when they checked out. And of course, like you can't tell for sure. And then also I don't see why Suge Knight's girlfriend would lie about Poochie being involved. I just don't think she has a reason to lie. She was offered protection, and
So,
it also
Ru-
implicated Suge, so she's not protecting Suge.
Russell Poole, the detective, he died, right? Like in the middle of all this. Was that true, or was it like, I think he died in maybe the late
Yeah,
2000s. So he
he
was
did.
okay. I'm just thinking like these stories are changing. Like new people are getting onto the case, and like old kind of corruption from the LAPD is out, So like it's just interesting. Like maybe there were more corrupt cops involved, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes,
I think you're onto
because
something.
yeah, because this was everything was dropped so easily. I feel like it was like, okay, they're not talking because they're gang members. So like, let's just forget about it. And now that there's new blood and new faces in this police force, a new task force,
Yeah.
they've actually attempted to get these people to talk and solve these cases.
That's really messy because then, yeah, you really do think that it was the police that were, or there were a lot of corrupt police officers because now we're
You're
finally
never
getting
gonna get
answers.
you're never gonna get a full story, I guess, if there's once they're corrupt cops, man, it's like, you know, it's over pretty much. Like, who do you go to, right? You can't trust anybody.
And
Exactly.
even though a lot of these gang members are in their 60s now, like when you grow up in that culture that like we don't talk to police, we don't say anything to police, this is all street justice, like Vinny was saying earlier, they're not going to talk just because they're older now.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're
That's
gonna die
kind
with
of in,
that.
yeah, it's ingrained in them. That's the lifestyle they chose to live. So I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get like a full true blue confirmation that like, yes, this is what happened.
It's sad though because the two targets were Pac and Biggie, and they weren't even really. You could argue that they weren't even really like the core of the situation or whatever. They were just the biggest names in the
Yes.
situation. Two
Yeah.
biggest stars on each coast.
And
Hmm.
not saying that he was or was not involved, but based on the stories, it is interesting to me that it seems like the two biggest driving forces are Suge and Puffy. And they both, I mean, especially Puffy.
Yeah, with everything coming to light now,
Yep. He
it's
lived a
crazy.
very long, successful life before he got kind of called out for what he was actually doing behind the scenes.
And who was, I think you mentioned this, but wasn't Biggie or was it, I think it was Pac maybe, who threatened to leave Death Row?
Pac was trying to
Okay.
leave. Yeah.
Pac was trying to leave. So
He was going to be
again,
done
like,
after his 3 record deal.
yeah, yeah. So again, like, Suge Knight's running that. I'm sure he was money motivated a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say when no one's talking, no one's giving info.
Yeah, and I feel like the industry can be so dark, like as we've just said, what's coming to light and things like that. So like things were probably going behind closed doors, going on about this argument and these fights and these killings and paying people, and it's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
All, all over a necklace.
All over a
All
BFF
over
necklace.
a BFF necklace.
BFF necklace.
Gosh, that was good,
Well,
Lex. That kept me
thank
intrigued.
you. I really enjoyed researching this one. I think it's very
A
interesting.
lot.
Like I said, because I've heard bits and pieces of the story, but to be able to sit down and hear it all together was very interesting. Vinny, why don't you use a minute to plug yourself and tell us where we can find you and your music?
Eee.
Cousin Vinny on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, any streaming platform you got for your music. Yeah, like I said, I'm releasing music soon. I'm very excited, and I love being the creator for the baddies. So, yeah, proud to be here today.
We are so excited to have you here today. This is so fun. Also, you can follow us on all the places where you can listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Bloodshed Baddies. Please don't forget to give us a nice review. That's very helpful.
Send us an email with a case suggestion or a story to bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com. Intro music made by our guest today, Cousin Vinny. And before you tune in next week for our next episode, any last words, Vinny?
Um, I love you guys, and I'm proud of you. Keep doing this. I can say I'm officially a baddie now. So.
Woo!
I need your merch now.
We need to get
So
some
make some
merch.
t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love you, Vin. Thank you so much. And we love you, baddies.
Love y'all.
Can we get maybe like a little sample of something?
A little sample. Let me see.
Ooh,
Let me see if I
Lex,
got
good
something on my
question.
phone. So I wrote a song about the book of Proverbs in the Bible, and this is a little sample.
I'm like so excited.
Thanks for having me.
The Proverbs, chapter 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding.
Open my eyes and I read a proverb. All the wisdom in it speaks volumes. Written by Solomon, who was a wise king like his father. The wisest one to ever live, that's what they say about him.
Receive the instruction of wisdom.
I listen to his guidance and analyze how he dives into these different topics. How fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and how humility comes before honor. So as I read, I try to apply it. You know, apply it to my life. The questions keep arising as I'm riding through the night. I keep failing on a daily as I'm trying to get it right.